All right. I'm getting technology set up, so bear with me for a couple seconds. Perfect. Okay. I am going to do this one setting. All right. I think we are all good to go. So I am Dr. Megan Graff with movementrx. Thank you so much for joining me and talking about, mobility at your home workstation setup. And honestly, even for those of you who have maybe gone back to the office, this is still very applicable to, working on mobility in the workplace as well. But especially if you're working from home and it's a different setup than you're used to, it's really, really important to make sure that you continue to mobilize to make sure that you're not developing any new aches and pains. So if you weren't able to tune in with Dr. T a few weeks ago, she talked about how to set up your home workstation setup, the ergonomic setup, from head to toe, of the importance of how you're sitting or standing at home. So definitely go back and refer to that video if you weren't able to take a look, because first and foremost, to help from developing little aches and pains, you want to make sure that you're already set up for success based on how you're sitting and standing at your workstation at home. And then still things to be thinking about when you go back to the office, if you do go back. So we're gonna go through head to toe mobility because, although lower back issues, I would say, both in the clinic from what I've seen and just, the little bit of research that's been done on home workstation setup, low back pain is very, very common to develop, especially working from home. And that's honestly what I've seen, since the start of quarantine until moving now. That was kind of the common complaint of people who maybe had a really great setup at the office, didn't have issues with back or neck pain, now working from home, had a less than optimal setup, started having lower back issues. That was definitely one of the main things that I was seeing a lot more of. So it's something to be conscientious of, both for yourself, and then if you're an employer, things to be mindful of to be able to provide for your employees of, hey, let's try to be proactive about your back health. And maybe even sharing again that home workstation setup video that we have on our YouTube, and then sharing this one too of mobility techniques that they can be doing to keep things from developing. So again, we're going to start from head down. I'm going to go through all of the techniques. If you have any questions that come up throughout, feel free to put them in the chat or in the Q&A, and I'm going to check those at the end once we've kind of run through everything. So feel free to go ahead and put your questions in as they come up, but I will save them for the end to answer. So we're going to start at the neck. So I'm going to speak to, if you have a standing desk, we're going to kind of start with all these mobilizations in standing, but a lot of these you can do in sitting as well. So one, we are at the computer a ton and we stay in one position for a long time. Ideally, as it is, you should be taking movement breaks every 20 to 30 minutes. I get that some people's schedule is still very busy working from home, and they maybe feel like they can't, or you can't get up and take a break from your computer, but there's still a lot of things that you can be doing while you're sitting down or standing at your computer to still make sure you're thinking about your joint health while you're working. So starting at the neck, even just doing gentle range of motion. So it doesn't need to be a big aggressive stretch. So I'm just bringing my chin down to my chest and then looking up. So just nice, easy range of motion, because again, we're always looking straight ahead at the computer, not moving our neck in the way that it was designed to move. And chances are, if you're working from home, you're hardly driving as much maybe as you used to be. And so, the little bit of rotation you would get when you're checking your blind spot, we're not even getting that. So that's another reason why maybe your neck is feeling more stiff working from home, because you don't have the commute where you're at least challenging your neck range of motion a little bit more. So not only doing up and down, you can do 5 to 10 reps, nice and easy. And then doing the same thing, rotating side to side. So just going nice and slow. Obviously, if for any reason this makes you dizzy, just slow it down. You don't need to spend an hour mobilizing at a time, but You know, whether it's setting a little timer on your phone or your computer, or put a little post-it note to remind you every 20 to 30 minutes to do some of these mobility exercises, ideally when it comes to the neck, because it is nice and easy to sneak in. You know, if you're on a call and you're listening, you don't necessarily need to be staring at the screen right then. Give your eyes a break. So look away from the screen, or even closing your eyes and working that neck range of motion. So both rotating and the up and down, just where you feel a nice gentle stretch. And then from there, so like I said, we're gonna work from the head down. So maybe it's, you know, in the 8 o'clock hour at 8:30, you do some of your neck stretches. And then the next half hour, you can move down to the lower back. So all throughout the day, you can be hitting each body part, but, you know, kind of systematically moving through. So you're getting a little bit of mobility, total body, while you're still working. And you don't necessarily have to get away from your desk. Ideally, do get up, you know, take walking breaks away from the desk, also to give your eyes a break. But for the times that you are at your workstation, I want to give you mobility tools to be able to do while you're there. So next is for your upper back, which, working on the mobility of this part of your back, although you may not have pain there or tightness specifically, if you're having issues with your neck or even your lower back, shoulders, elbows, wrists, a lot of time that has to do with the tightness in the upper back here. So, and it's a very neglected part of our body when it comes to trying to stretch or mobilize, just because we think, oh, our rib cage is there, that area is not really supposed to move a ton. But the stiffness there really affects our neck and upper body especially, but the lower back as well. So as far as kind of top mobilization for this one, I really like the wall angels. So you can either get up against the wall, if you can take a little break from your computer, step away and get yourself up against the wall. It's almost like you're doing a snow angel. But even if you're sitting or standing at your desk, getting your arms back, you want to try to pull them back as far as you can, but make sure you're not pulling them so far back that your shoulder itself kind of pops forward. A lot of times, if our shoulders are a little bit stiff, the shoulder blades kind of try to compensate and it dumps you forward a little bit. So just go to where you can, thinking about squeezing the shoulder blades down and back, and then you're going to pull the arms as wide as you can. And already with that, chances are you're probably going to feel a little bit of a stretch here in the pecs, maybe in the shoulders and neck a little bit too. So squeezing those shoulder blades, and then a little bit of a chin tuck. So you don't want to be here and the neck starts jutting out forward. Think about nice straight line. Your ears should be in line with your shoulders. So if there is a string tied to the top of your head, it's kind of elongating your spine. So up nice and tall, arms are back, and then just moving your arms up and down. So especially as you kind of tuck your elbows in tight, you should feel a nice little shoulder blade squeeze because you're keeping your arms back. It's a really great stretch through the front of the chest. And same thing, you can do 5 to 10 reps here and then go back to what you were doing. But even just doing that, it kind of feels like, wow, it feels really nice to open up. And it's that much easier to then sit or stand with a better shoulder position. You know, we always want to be thinking about slightly kind of just gently squeeze shoulder blades to have your arms in a good position, that you're not rounded and the shoulders are dumped forward here. So when you do that mobilization throughout the day, it's kind of a nice, like, oh yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be sitting. So the more frequently you do that, even if it's just 1 to 2 reps every 15 to 20 minutes, you know, you're not taking anything away from your work day to throw a couple of those in and then get back to it, you know, in between emails, whatever it is, make it a little bit of a game to try to sneak it in throughout your day. You know, I'm again trying to give you the tools, because that's probably the main excuse I hear from people all day is I'm still super busy with work. I can't get away from my computer. You know, I can't take breaks. You know, ideally, when it comes to movement health, we want you taking that break, you know, just getting up and walking, give your eyes a break. But if you are busy, use these tools, keep your body healthy. Don't let yourself be taken out by pain or an injury because you didn't take those few seconds and few minutes throughout your workday to be proactive to keep an issue from developing. You know, a lot of times we don't start doing anything until there's pain or until there's a problem. But that's why we want to work on the prevention side, so you don't have those issues develop. We want to keep you healthy and doing the things that you enjoy doing and being able to get through your workday without pain. So next, you can kind of, the nice thing is there, also combining it with a little bit of thoracic flexion. So here, this is technically thoracic extension, so kind of the straightening or opening up of the upper back. But a lot of times too, we actually are a little bit stiff in the rounding position as well. Our spine just doesn't like to move either way. So working on both directions is really important. So you can actually combine that into two movements of doing your wall angel squeeze and then straight into kind of a thoracic, so upper back and neck rounding, and then pulling it back. So you can do this both either seated or standing, but feeling a nice stretch through the base of your neck and kind of upper back as you reach forward, incorporating your breathing, nice big breath in as you pull back, exhale, and reach forward and around. And just start with 3 to 5 reps of that, get back into what you were doing. Trying to take these breaks as often as you can and just taking a few seconds all throughout the day. I'm going to keep honing on that to drive that point home because that's the most important thing when it comes to this workstation mobility, both at home and at the office. So next, we're going to work on upper body. So specifically the wrists. A lot of times, especially if you're typing and you're at the computer a lot, you may start to feel kind of carpal tunnel type symptoms like numbness or tingling or just pain and stiffness. So just taking those few seconds of, similar to how we did at the neck, you can just do little circles both directions. If you don't need to be typing right then, maybe you're reading an email, use that opportunity to do those. And then doing some gentle stretches into flexion, so bending your hand down. You can do it with straight or bent elbow, but especially because we're at the computer with bent elbows all day, it's nice to get it into that straightened position to get that little stretch. And then same thing, palm facing up. And it doesn't need to be an aggressive stretch, just right where you feel that tightness. And you can do it as slow repetitions, just kind of in and out of it, or hold it for 15 to 30 seconds, breathing in and out. Make sure to do both sides, both directions. So hitting on the wrist, the easy thing is just getting them moving out of that same position, doing little circles. And then I would say also hitting on some of the flexion and extension through the wrist. This one especially tends to feel really nice. But when we're at a keyboard all day long, these muscles get kind of stiff and shortened feeling. And so doing a flexion stretch is really great to get out of that typing position. So when it comes to the lower back, like I said, that's one of the most common areas to be feeling pain and discomfort that ultimately potentially could take you out of a work day. My back is hurting so much, I don't feel like I can sit at my desk or stand at my desk at home. I have to take time off of work, and we definitely don't want that. So once again, being proactive about doing some stretches and taking breaks is really important. Especially if you're standing, you can do just a standing forward fold or forward flexion stretch. You should feel a really nice stretch in the lower back here. Just go to where is comfortable. If you've been standing for a little while or even sitting at your chair and you go to bend forward, it may feel really stiff because when you're upright, your back is in neutral, but basically it can also be in a little bit of extension. So to come out of that into flexion is going to feel pretty tight. So you can do the same stretch sitting down in your chair, reaching towards the ground, or if you're in standing, reaching this way. So once again, you can do a couple deep breaths here. If you need to bend your knees, if you're feeling too much of a pull through the back of the legs, that's fine as well. For this one, it's more about feeling the stretch in the lower back. So if you have your legs locked out, it's going to feel like a lot more hamstrings, and we want it to, for this one, we want to feel a little more of the stretch in the lower back. So if you need to bend your knees a little bit, that's perfect, because you're going to feel a little bit better stretch through the lower back. So when it comes to then one of my favorite stretches, so I mentioned I love the wall angels for people trying to sneak those in. all throughout the day, even if you're not up against the wall. The other one for standing especially is a Captain Morgan pose. So if you have a standing desk, definitely try to utilize it throughout the day. But if you have a stool or something nearby, or just another portion of the desk, whatever it is, that you can bring your leg up, it's great because you're able to work on deep hip flexion. So you get a little bit of a hip stretch here. You can also have be standing somewhat to the side. So if you are trying to open yourself up away from your knee, you're getting a nice stretch in the inner thigh as well. So you can play around with, if it's your chair, you're able to put your foot up on, you can slide it around or roll it around, but getting it up higher to work on that deep hip flexion. And, again, I'm still standing at my desk and working, but now I'm working on my deep hip and also my ankle mobility. So we tend to be really tight in how much our knee is able to bend over our foot in this way. And that's going to affect your walking, especially if you are exercising. Your squat mobility is going to be affected, but even just day-to-day things of being able to pick something up off the ground without compromising your back. A lot of times we don't think about the ankle. So doing that standing mobilization is great because it's kind of a twofer. You're both hitting at your hip and at your ankle. And then when it comes to, if you're sitting down, you can still work on your hip mobility and ankle mobility as well. One, if you're able to, you can pull your foot up into your chair. I've talked to several people that are like, yeah, I spend time like this at the desk. I wouldn't say hang out here for too long because it may tweak your lower back a little bit. But if you spend a little bit of time here, again, 15 to 30 seconds, you're getting that little bit of ankle mobility and driving that knee out. If you don't quite have the flexibility to do that, to work on the hip in a sitting position, you can do kind of a seated figure 4. And I'm still working at my computer. It's not taking away from my work day. And I'm working on that hip mobility a little bit here. Maybe once again, you're reading an email and you can use your hands, bringing your knee up to your chest to work on that deep hip flexion. And then, and just by sitting down, you can still work on your ankle by pushing your foot underneath your seat. So when you do that, pulling your heel back and trying to drive your heel down to the ground, you should feel most of the stretch in the lower calf. You might feel a little bit of tightness in the front of the ankle. That's fine too. So making sure that you can sit there and also work your foot a little bit up and down so you're getting your toes somewhat too. So it's kind of head to toe mobility. I know it was a lot of different stuff. That way, you can kind of pick and choose. If you have an area that tends to be your problem area, say your shoulders are tight, doing that thoracic stretch, so the wall angel into flexion is a great one for you to add in. And then, say it's your lower back, making sure that you're addressing not just doing that either standing or seated forward flexion, making sure you're addressing the areas above and below. A lot of times we think, oh, well, my pain is in my shoulders, so I just need to do more shoulder stretches. Well, typically, just because the pain is there, that doesn't mean the problem is there. That is very, very common with the lower back. A lot of times the issue is not the lower back at all. It's the stiffness in the upper back, in the hips, and possibly even the ankles. So making sure that you're addressing that total body mobility is really, really important. Even if, you think, well, my pain is in my lower back, why do I need to be working on my neck and my shoulders? Because ultimately, if you're stiff in one place, another part of your body is going to be trying to make up for that stiffness to get you into the positions that you're trying to get into. Meaning, like if I want to sit a certain way, or I feel like I'm trying to sit up tall, but I'm really stiff in my upper back, well, then maybe your lower back is trying to arch to get you sitting in a better position or standing in a better position. And you wonder why, like, my lower back is really tight and it's really bothering me. It's important to address those other areas. So I encourage you to try the mobility from the top down. So starting at the neck and then working your way through the thoracic spine and through the wrists, lower back stretch, hips, and ankles. So I will go ahead and take some questions now. If you have any questions about those mobility techniques or how to incorporate them. Like I said, best thing is going to be trying to fit them in throughout the day as much as possible. It just takes a little bit, of conscious effort. Like I said, if it helps to have a Post-it note or, setting a little reminder on your phone of like, oh yeah, I need to get up and move. I know sometimes if people have the fitness watches or the Fitbits, it'll tell you like, hey, you haven't moved in a while, you need to move. But honestly, even those are maybe every hour. And I would encourage you to try to do these mobility techniques more often than that, especially these ones that don't require you to get away from your desk. Take 30 seconds, if even that, to sit here and do them, and I can still be doing my mobility. Okay, I'm reading a question right now and I'm doing my wall angels, and I can, it's a little bit of multitasking, but the more you start incorporating it, because some of these movements might feel very foreign to you, so it takes a little bit more thought of like, what am I supposed to be doing again? But the more you practice it, the more natural it's going to feel of just, okay, I can tell I'm starting to feel stiff, or ideally being proactive and doing these before you start to feel stiff. But okay, I'm listening on my phone call and I'm just going to do my neck stretches. And it may help to have a little Post-it note of all the techniques listed out of, okay, I'm going to do my neck. Sometimes people like to turn it into a game of like putting a little tally mark next to each body part that they mobilize throughout the day. I'm like, oh man, I got to my neck 3 times. Oh, I only got to my ankle twice. Let me start there tomorrow. So try to make it a game. And so it's helpful to have that list. So we'll go through in the notes and kind of make a note of the different techniques that we talk through. And so that way, you can take that note, or hopefully you're taking notes along the way if you were able to remember which techniques to do, and then just work your way through every day, all throughout your workday. And it's not going to take time away from you working or from your employees working if you're an employer in HR listening on. So again, I want to reiterate that just because the pain is in the shoulder or the lower back, that doesn't mean that's where the problem is as far as stiffness. So making sure that you're mobilizing the areas all around it. Like I said, I prefer head to toe mobility so you can prevent any issues from coming up, in other places. But, just that way you're hitting on all the areas that likely are contributing to your lower back pain by addressing your ankles and your hips and your upper back. So making sure that you're addressing all of those areas. It's not just about, oh, well, my back is hurting. What kind of back stretches can I be doing? I think that's a very common problem that we see just in general with the athletes that we work with. And then, people that are having kind of day-to-day pain with everyday activities. They're like, oh, I'm having knee pain. Teach me knee stretches and knee strengthening exercises. Or they've gone to the Google and looked up what to do for knee pain. And it's like all these very basic stretches and exercises for right around the knee. Like I said, most of the time, that's not where the problem is. With the knee, a lot of times it can be the hip or possibly tightness at the ankle, and even core strength when it comes to the lower back. So it's important to look at all of those areas and be addressing each of those areas and trying to be proactive as possible about your total body health. And that's where we come in, and we're here to help. So we're really excited that our new website is live, and we have so many different systems available for both individuals and companies to be able to use for employees. And then for you as an individual, if you're having pain or you're not really sure where to start when it comes to an exercise program, or maybe your gym closed down and you kind of let your fitness routine fall by the wayside, we have a lot of different programs that are geared towards different body parts. But I say that, but like what I said before, our knee fix program or our shoulder fix program, you're not only doing knee and shoulder exercises, you're a whole person. So we're addressing balance side to side and strength from head to toe for you as a person in these programs, even though they are a little more joint specific and working on those problem areas. So we have a ton of different programs, no matter who you are, You know, having those resources available of like, okay, I feel like I've lost my routine. I want to get back into it. And maybe you are dealing with some new aches and pains. Our fitness programs are a great place to start for that. And we have lots of different challenges that you can partake in as well, including our 20-day wellness at the desk program or challenge that you can go through. And some of the new features that we have on our website is having you know, a 1 hour open Q&A session with one of our doctors of physical therapy that you're able to, you know, ask specific questions about what's going on with you. And they can be anonymous. So that way, you know, yes, other people are able to be on to learn from your question. And same thing, you're able to listen on about other people's questions of like, oh yeah, I'm dealing with that, but I didn't think about asking. But you know, when you submit a question and it's answered in those open Q&As, it is available for everybody to see, but they are submitted anonymously. And then we have daily DRM, so some similar mobility techniques that we went through today, live on camera with either one of our DPTs or one of our strength and conditioning coaches, that they're there to help answer any questions that if you got maybe a weird little twinge with the movement of maybe how to tweak it for you. So having that live access is huge. So we're really excited to be able to put that out on our platform for you guys. And then we have live fitness classes. So not only do you have the programs to be following along, but again, if you're a little nervous about getting started on your own or you're not really sure about form, we do have fitness classes led by our coaches that they're talking you through how the movement should go, what you should be feeling. And so you're able to better understand, okay, I'm not really feeling it where they say I should be, so you can ask a quick question. But having that real-time feedback is huge. And that's what makes a big difference versus it just being like, okay, there's this online program I can follow. It's great to have that format, but ultimately having that access to your healthcare professionals is huge. So in helping with the confidence, getting back into fitness and getting out of pain and, you know, doing what you want to be able to do without pain. So we're really excited to be able to offer that. So go check out our new website, the same URL, but cooler format, lots and lots of different features. So go check it out, movementrx.com. Thank you so much for joining me. I always have fun teaching this stuff. So again, if you have any questions, I'm going to hang around for another minute or two talking to myself, but really talking to you guys. And just, again, thank you for joining me. This stuff is so important, and I hope that you learned, you know, at least one technique that you feel like, oh man, yeah, either you hopefully tried it along with me, or, you know, something that you feel like is easy enough for you to incorporate. But I challenge you to total body, write your list on your computer, move through it throughout the day, and, you know, get to be pain-free during your work day. If you're not already, but if you are, let's keep it that way. So be proactive in mobilizing. And if you missed our video on the ergonomic setup for your home workstation, and really it's good tips and pointers if you are back at the office and maybe haven't ever had an ergonomic assessment, I would encourage you to check that out. And it's going to be really helpful to augment the mobility stuff that we went over today, because it's great for you to mobilize, but if you have a less than ideal setup at your workstation, you're kind of fighting an uphill battle. To make it easier on yourself, make sure you have a good workstation setup and then be mobilizing throughout the day, and you're going to be ready to rock and roll. So thanks again for joining me, and everybody have a great day.